This is where the fun begins.
Prepare yourself for Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. The evil Empire has struck back with a vengeance, and a new villain, the crime lord Shizor, schemes to replace Darth Vader as the Emperor's second-in-command. With Han Solo held frozen in carbonite by bounty hunter Boba Fett, it's the rebellion's darkest hour. Now, join Jedi warrior Luke Skywalker, hard-charging Chewbacca, and go undercover with heroic pilot Dash Rendar and his booming Outrider. But can Han Solo be freed and Shizor be stopped? Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. Look for the authentic figures and vehicles from Kenner.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursday morning CAF Chat. And I'm your host, Alora, or OG Star Wars, and I'm so happy to be here with you guys. Always wonderful to come and sit and have some CAF with you guys and discuss Star Wars and any news that's coming up as well. So if you are new here to the channel, please subscribe. If you're returning, like and share as well, and also become a channel member. So thank you guys for coming in. I do see I have people waiting in the chat as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm sorry I'm just a few minutes late. I was trying to get a small video clip up for the show and it wasn't going. It was a last minute thing and it wasn't going the way I wanted it to. So I just gave up on it and I will edit it and put it in the right format and it'll be up for next show. Yeah. But let's see who's in the chat here. And I do have Darth Toby here bouncing around here. So if you hear anything rattling and stuff like that, he is currently in the studio with me right now. So you guys might see him jump up on the chair and stuff. So you might see appearances from Darth Toby. All right. So let's see who here. Zagharat. Good morning, Alora and chat. Well, good morning to you. And one of the most important questions I do ask you guys is, what are you enjoying? What's your beverage? What's in your mug? I am, of course, enjoying my coffee. It's morning where I'm at. And then a channel member here. Hello there from Orange Hat Review. And the Fractured Filter. Good morning, one and all. Good morning to you. And the beautiful, sweet Melissa Lord. Hey, OG Star Wars. Hey, how are you doing, girl? Glad to have you here. Crimson Mist, a channel member. Man, I missed the live stream earlier this week. Grr. That was spontaneous. It was the day that Disney declared that the EU would no longer be canon, no longer would be a part of the timeline that they wanted to create. So basically back then I was pissed. That's one of the things that really kind of just, I was like, this is not going to be where I need to be with Star Wars, kind of deal. So it kind of sealed the deal with me and how I felt with the purchase by Disney and George's decision. And so I was out. But now today, because then I was like, okay, well, maybe if I could support this, maybe they will continue at a separate timeline. So I was kind of up for that in the sense of maybe they would continue stories or finish stories, I guess you can say. And then I was on the campaign of, if you buy Legends, you'll show them what you really want out of the EU. And now I'm like, no, I've seen what they've done with the lore. I've seen what they've done with Star Wars, the direction they want to go. I don't want our beloved original stories to be a part of that. So, so that was about celebrating the EU. So celebrating the EU and talking about it, stories we like, how we got introduced, all of that beautiful stuff that sometimes I do for my Talking EU. So it was like a big old huge Talking EU session with you guys, celebrating the EU. Orange Hat says, this is where the fun begins. Let's see how Disney's Sith measures up to the Sith that destroyed worlds with the Force. Yeah, you'll be interesting to find out why, like what evidence proves that they're more savage than the original Sith. So I think it's going to be very laughable, cringe, especially. And Yeah. So all of that. It's like, and so that became part of the subject today is the crystals. So the type of crystals that were used for the lightsabers, the focusing crystals, all of that, the type of crystals, what crystals were used, where did they find them? Was it just one certain crystal? Not really, but we'll get into that. So the topics today are lightsabers, Sith, so basically going to the cringe factor, beverages, Star Wars beverages. So if you guys know, so we'll start with the Star Wars beverages first. So if you guys know any Star Wars beverage that you probably read about, seen, or whatever, heard about within the original lore, name them in the comments, and or maybe even name the ones that you wish you can taste today, like you're curious about that, and name them in the chat. If you don't know, that's perfectly fine, because not all of us are going to know much about like the little aesthetics parts of the world where you get into everyday stuff, like hanging out at a cantina, ordering your favorite drink, a cup of CAF. CAF is coffee. And then you have hot chocolate, which is hot chocolate. Yeah, so share with me what you know, or what could be like a favorite beverage in Star Wars that you want to try. There's a fog blaster too, so if you guys haven't read. So you have the Corellian whiskey, you have Alderaan wines. Yeah, so please share in the chat. And I'm going to go through the comments here, and then we'll get into a little bit more about the beverages. I thought it'd be fun to talk something like off the wall that we normally don't discuss. We're always like heavy story, heavy character type of, or type of deal. So yeah, so I thought maybe let's talk about beverage. Why not? CAF Chat is named after a Star Wars beverage, coffee, basically CAF. So yeah, let's see here. Hello there from Batsy. Hello to you. Let's see here. So Factured says, this is between Factured and Orange. Crimson Mist. I've seen Boba Fett IG-88 Shadows of the Empire set on sale for $24. Should I buy? I would collect it. If you don't have it, of course you probably don't have it, I would get it. Get it. Especially if it's in excellent condition. Get it. Add it to your collection. Add it to your collection. Bombot Zero says, hey, OG. Hey, what's up? And Darth Toby left me. He's gone now. So hopefully he won't come in here and raise hell. Crimson Mist says, morning, Alora. You almost have my name spelled right. The R before the H. Having my usual, please don't hate me. What is your usual? I forget again. Kenny Long, good morning, Alora. Disney Star Wars sucks, but you're awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. What's the EU lore topic for today? EU Sith versus Disney era. So that's Cringe Factor, Anonymous Gamer. We are going to talk about lightsaber crystals and also Star Wars beverages. Something fun, simple, something that we never talk about. Beverages in Star Wars. So might as well see what you guys know and expand on it a little bit more. Especially when we know like some of the scenes that we were first introduced to is cantinas. So there are different type of beverages. Some may be the same. The concept may be the same. There is beer in Star Wars. Yes, there's beer, there's whiskey, there's rum, all of that. Let's see here. My mug is full of apple juice. Laugh out loud. Awesome. Swig of water. Oh, that's okay. Water is good for you. My thing is I begin my mornings with water first. As someone who likes caring about the body and stuff like that and wanting to keep the body functional, I drink water first and then I have my coffee. Yeah, so that's good. Batsy says, I'm drinking some nice cold water. Okay. I've got my usual vanilla nut cream flavored coffee. Yum, yums. That sounds good. Vanilla nut cream. That sounds so bad. I will not go there. It's too early for this. Okay. Kenny Long. I drank a zero sugar energy drink a bit ago, prepping for my NFL party tonight. Oh, cool. All right. Well, I hope you have a good time tonight. Neil says, let me turn off my phone because the alerts are on and it's buzzing. There you go. Hey, OG. It's been a while. I've been re-listening to the Thrawn trilogy. Mark Thompson was awesome narrating. Yes, he's a great narrator. And it reminded me how good the old EU was for Star Wars. I'm still sad it was decanonized. Yeah, it's a bit sad, but don't be sad because if they bring it in, they're just gonna destroy it. So be happy with what we got or what we have. I know it's kind of like I wish we could get the unfinished stories and stuff, but then again, we don't want Disney with their record to touch the EU. Yeah. So rejoice, be happy that we still have it, that they're still in print. That I know that there are some series like the Young Jedi Knights and for example, that you have to find because they're not reprinting, which is pretty bad. Let me say I didn't read that. Sorry. And the whole generation of young fans will only know the dual Disney stuff. Well, not necessarily. If you have been introducing your kids from the start Star Wars, and you collect and you read the books and stuff, they will know more than the ones that don't have that interaction with their parents. Um, Jury juice, or you mean Jawa juice? Let's see here. And you probably are right. There's so many drinks that I don't know myself. On top of what um, what there is. Let's see here. But I will share somewhere. I'll share a list. Well, I didn't make a list. I usually prep and make a list or a PowerPoint for this, and I didn't. I was so damn tired. I subbed last night a class, got home, had my dinner, washed up, and then I prepped for CAF chat, and I was so tired. I was gonna bead my daughter's beaded set that I'm doing, and I was just too tired. My eyes are like closing and stuff, so I was like, it's time to hit the sack. I know from SWG on Viserion. Oh yeah, Viserion brandy. Yeah. So there's different brandies, whiskeys, all of that. I want to drink blue milk. Blue milk is bantha milk. Excuse me. Yeah. Which was common on Tatooine and other parts of the galaxy because of bantha. Bantha milk is basically cow milk, I guess you could say, in the Star Wars galaxy. Yeah. Anonymous Gamer says the only Star Wars beverages I've heard of is a blue milk and CAF. Blue milk sounds nutritious to me. Okay. Also, congratulations to Laura. She just inspired me to do a Disney Star Wars video later today. Okay. Awesome. Well, share it in the community, YouTube community on Twitter. And I'm drinking Pepsi. Awesome. Cheers to you. That was when I did drink sodas. Pepsi was my thing. I had since then quit sodas like, let's see, now 17 and 18 years ago or something, or like 17 years ago. So I haven't had a soda for 17 years. And it was tough quitting it. I'm not going to lie. But I did it. Okay. As long as it's not from Galaxy's Edge. I remember hearing people getting sick from drinking their swill. Well, yeah, like that's what I heard too. I don't know what else is going on with them, but yes. Orange Hat says something I haven't done in a long time. In a long, long time. Don't you dare. I like my coffee. Dang it. Just the way it sounded, the way I read it. And if you guys know me on Spacing. Well, if you guys watch me on Spacing, you know how I think, my thought process. That doesn't end there. That's my everyday thing. And sometimes it spills over here on CAF Chat. So if you set yourself up, I may say something funny, something silly. Yeah, so that's just who I am. That's just who I am. And it's not to hurt anybody's feelings. It's just something that I notice and I see and I'm like, oh my God. It's just how my brain works. I can't do coffee, but I love caffeine. Oh, okay. That's fair enough. There's people that can't. And then there's alternatives too as well. So, CAF crystals. Let's see here. I know. I just stop. Just stop. I know. Just stop. I stopped drinking soda too after I heard you tell that story. OG, huge inspiration. Well, thank you so much, Robert. Even if you love it and you can't fully quit, moderations is such a good thing. And I thought I've been turning off. Okay. Moderations is good too. Like anything that is decadent, that is, decadent, desserts and stuff like that. Moderation, don't quit everything. Like, especially if you like something, just put it in moderation. If you're changing yourself, your lifestyle, um, even having things on moderation, it's still good for, but doing something excessively becomes an addiction. Yeah. So I'm not here to preach. I'm sorry, you guys. This is just my fitness, healthy body, conscience kind of person here. But like I said, I do stuff in moderations as well. I love my chocolates. I love certain things, moderation, so no deprivation. When I quit sodas, that was just a huge decision I made for some conditions I have in my body that quitting soda would make me more healthier and more functional for myself. So that was my own body choice and stuff. So, but I'm not here to preach that, because I do drink coffee and I do have a little bit of sweetener in here. So there we go. And I'm glad I am here to inspire. What? You hurt people's feelings, OG? Nah, I don't hurt people's feelings. I just tell the truth as it is. I'm very blunt. I have a very strong personality. And yeah, so if people can't deal with it, then that's their own problem. All right, so let's get back into drinks. Star Wars drinks. So we do have, like I said, the Fog Blaster. We do have CAF. We do have the Corellian whiskey. So if you read the X-Wing series, you would know about Corellian whiskey. And let's see here. I'm just trying to make sure. I wrote down a small list and stuff. So, and then, like I said, the Fog Blaster is one that you read in Legacy of the Force. All of that. And so it's very, very unique to see all these beverages. And then you do have hot chocolate. Let's see here. And many other stuff like that. Many other stuff. And hot chocolate was introduced basically by Lando to, let me come back to the screen here, to Luke. And that became his drink. And so I thought that was fascinating. So do you guys feel like it's kind of out of place hearing the word hot chocolate instead of coming up with a different name that kind of sounds similar? So let me know in the chat, because sometimes people do get taken out of the experience when they hear a our world name concept for it. So, but Luke was introduced to hot chocolate by Lando. Lando wouldn't give the designation or the planet where it came from. So, but it was called exotic, very exotic. So it kind of leaves your mind to play like, I wonder where he really got this from. I wonder what planet, from, it's exotic and stuff. So that was Luke's choice of drink. And then you always hear about, Han drinking, of course, Corellian whiskey and all that other stuff. So he was one of those guys that loved gambling, loved drinking and stuff like that. He'd probably been a cool dude to hang out with, even after he settled down with Leia. And because his personality didn't necessarily change. It was his morals and his standards. And because of the love of the woman, that's Leia. So, so he was still pretty much the Corellian guy, with his Corellian swag and stuff. And he still loved to go out and gamble and drink and stuff. And so, that was part of his world and his self. Let me see here. Let me see what you guys have to say. Oh God, I see something here. And that's what brought me here. Well, thank you so much. Would you like baby Yodakery? Yodakery. Ew. I don't even want to know what's the hell's in that. Recently, I started using MIO energy drinks mix I put in water to drink. Interesting. How does that taste and how does that make you feel? Like the energy drinks. Yes, it does take me out a little bit. Okay. And Lance says, OG Star Wars, what do you think Luke liked more, blue milk or green milk? I would say blue milk, because The Luke that drank the green milk is not Luke. That's Jake. Okay. It would be cool if they could have come up with a different name, but I guess they wanted you to know what it was so you could imagine it for yourself. Yeah. Well, I mean, they came up with CAF, but CAF, you have cafes, CAF, so that's just like abbreviated word for coffee, like I guess you could say. So, um, let's see here. Orange Hat says, it's a bit disarming. Personally, I would have used steamed cocoa or even changed the spelling simply to cocoa. Yeah. And that's the thing, so so we have that. And then it goes to with all the different beverages like whiskey, and all of that. And what's crazy is that when we get into the alcohol portion of everything, you do have different you do have what things are called octane, and that's a type of name for alcohol in the lore. You have octane, and let me go ahead and pull up my notes here. I hate when so you have those different octane kind of drinks here. You have all of that. So and then you have like something that is per planet or species. You have something like that's called star vine, which is I believe a wine. And so it's very interesting to see go into and read about and and research all of these different whiskeys. And then you have your Kashyyyk beverages. Let me go ahead and bring that up here because Kashyyyk. So basically, Wookiees too, they have their stuff. So it's called Kashyyyk basically. And it's served on Coruscant, and it was served in the brownish purple bottle decorated with a yellow label stating drink's name in Arabic. The design and label was the same as the motif of Kashyyyk welcomes you, a poster. So yeah, you have that, but that's something that was appeared in the Clone Wars, Filoni Clone Wars. Yeah, so which I thought was very interesting there. There are some things, like I said, I don't care for Clone Wars, Filoni style, but there's some things I'm like, okay, like there's some episodes, like I said, that I like, and then all of that. So, I try to give credit where credit's due. And then one thing that caught my eye is the Yotoni Bosca. So it's a beverage served by chefs of the Hutt species during the reign of the New Republic. And this came out of the Phase book and travel guide as well. So, so it's like anybody, it's a drink that when you visit the Huttese restaurants in the space parts of Mos Eisley on the planet of Tatooine, the drink is described as a mind relaxing type tonic. And it's listed among his favorites of the Huttese. And so that goes with, was that Jabba? Yeah. I think that was Jabba, I believe. Yeah, Jabba. Can't even read my notes. Damn it. But anyways, so there's these interesting drinks. And we have Sentinel in the house. Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? And let's see here. Hey there, Sentinel. Yeah. So I just thought I'd bring up drinks and stuff. Maybe after I'm done with my, I still haven't picked one yet. I'm sorry, you guys. I will get to it. This last week was just hella busy. I've been busy beating and stuff. But I will pick a vehicle from a major badge manufacturer company, and I will do a short. So I did one on Hirsch Kessel and Freitech. And so let's see what is next. So if you want to hear about any of the major manufacturers, say so in the, let me know in the comments and let me know which one. Maybe I will randomly pick one since I really haven't picked one yet. Or I will, if we keep on getting the same demand, I will go with that. Okay. So today's other topics, for those who are joining in, please hit the like button. I don't have a poll for you guys to vote on or anything like that today. But today's topics basically is Star Wars beverages And then we're going to go into lightsaber crystals, the focusing crystals, and what crystals were used. And then we're going to go into cringe factor. We have major topics. I have the Sith topic of it's a very laughable, cringy one. And it's saying that Disney Star Wars Sith are more savage than Legends are original Sith. So, and there's a reason why. They state the reason why, and it's going to make you guys laugh. Especially knowing the Sith of the Old Republic. So it's going to be a fun one. But then we're going to get into some serious topics too regarding Mon Mothma. And I'm going to touch bases a little bit more on Tamora Morrison and the video that I did just recently about him, and talk about legacy characters. So you guys stay tuned for that. So with lightsaber crystals, we're going to switch gears. Let's start making our way towards the Sith article. Disney Sith, ha 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 ha. Yeah, Disney Sith, Disney Star Wars Sith. Yep. And Batu is here. Hello, guys. He says. So what do you guys know about lightsaber crystals? And do you have a favorite lightsaber crystal? If you really expanded yourself into the EU, let me know in the comment there. I know some people come in and they're learning things for the first time, or they're hearing about things for the first time because they never really fully got immersed into it. And that's okay. That's why we're here. We're all levels of knowledge here. So we're all coming in and learning from each other, talking, having a nice conversation with each other. And then Anonymous Gamer says in Star SWG, I'll just say that, there's an energy drink called Death Star Destruction. Yeah, that's right. That was sold by rebel officers during the Empire Day on the planet Corellia in the city of Coronet. Perfect. And then I don't recall that one at all. When was that brought into the game? So yeah, so let's see here. So the Death Star destruction was said so that's interesting here. So so go ahead and tell me what you know about lightsaber crystals, and if you have a favorite one. If you don't know like any of the names of any of lightsabers, then that's okay. Go ahead and ask any questions about them. Feel free to. So let's see here. I'm going to get my Twitter link off of here. All right. Only that they augment the lightsaber composition sometimes like that. And Disney has lately made them seem like mood rings. Yeah, so we'll kind of get into that once we talk about the Sith stuff. But we won't discuss too much on Disney at all right now with this. So, but I get your point. Crate Dragon crystals. There's one. The only Star Wars drink I'm aware of is homemade and concoction called the Vote of No Confidence. And let's see here. My son, 12, read the Young Jedi Knight series last year, but just last week we talked about which games we'd use for a lightsaber. Or gems. I don't know why I said games. I mentioned the most unique would probably be Jason's Coruscant. Yeah, and so the most unique rare one, I guess you can say, or the most unique one also offered the most powerful, or the most I wouldn't say powerful, effective, maybe one. Effective is probably a better choice of words. Orange Hat Review says, my favorite crystal is the Ghost Fire crystal. I was reading up on that last night before I went to bed. Creating a blade that is nearly invisible and has no hum, making it the most deadly. Yeah, so that's one of them. The Ghost Fire crystal is kind of rare, I guess you can say. And like I said, it's most effective. And it could also be most deadly, right? Just like here. Okay, let's see here. And I remember Mirta found a lightsaber crystal, had one that was attuned to her. So there's those. Like a good example of attunement too is the lambent crystal. When when Anakin Solo went to go rescue Tahiri Vela, he went undercover as a slave, I guess you can say, to the Vong, and they had the lambent trees, and they were a tree that grew like a type of crystal that was used by the Vong and stuff, and it becomes attuned to the person. And so that's what he did. He spent like a few days meditating with it, becoming attuned to it, all of this stuff, built a new saber from it. And or put it in his saber basically, and then used it. So it was a pretty purplish color, I believe, from what I remember when I read it. And it helped him also sense the Vong. So that was pretty unique in itself. So yeah, you can become attuned to it, and almost like a bonding, but not really. It's just that, it's like aware of each other, I guess you can say. But it depends on the crystal, because crystals are not necessarily sentient. And I'm going to go here. Disney has them as sentient, and we'll get into more of that. Crimson Mist says, I need to learn more about these saber crystals. Yes, and that's why we're here. We're not going to go on through all of them. We're just going to talk about a few, but hopefully this opens up your eyes to really want to get into that lore and explore a little bit more. And hey, didn't they have hot chocolate in Legends? Yes, we were just talking about that before you came in. Yes, they did. Let's see. The anonymous gamer says it was made to celebrate the 50th anniversary. Okay, so that was in response. Luke's green crystal is synthetic, right? Correct. His was synthetic because at the time, he was so isolated. Well, he wasn't isolated at the time, but a lot of crystal. It was harder to find a crystal, and with them still fighting for their freedom against the Empire and stuff like that, it was easier for him to just do his, make his crystal. General Grievous had a lightsaber that contained a Bane's heart crystal that Darth Bane created. That's another one, the Bane's heart crystal. So, I mean, I'm just going to have to do, once I'm satisfied and I do all these lore here, I'm going to have to do like lore shorts on these crystals. So again, if there's a major manufacturer that you want to see for the next EU short, let me know. Let's see. OG Star Wars. My favorite crystals are custom crystals. I have a book that says, as long as you have the skill, you can make crystals, make blades that can do anything. So that's probably the synthetic crystal. And then depending on how big the crystal is and how you position the crystal and the focusing crystal, and having another crystal in there too as well, can also change the length of your saber as well. The blade of the saber. I'm cheating, y'all, using the Wookiee for crystal names. Oh my god, and here we go. He's using Wookiee. OG Star Wars, I never heard the Ghostfire crystal. I am assuming it's a Stygium crystal. It says in the lore that Stygium crystals saber enhances all Force Sith stealth abilities. No, they're kind of separate, I guess you can say. If I'm wrong, then I will correct myself. Technically, there are sentient crystals in the form of shards. They can pilot a droid body like a Gundam. Hello, Zim. How you doing? Like I said, there are some, but they're very, very rare. OG Stars, if the Stygium crystals is a Force-based crystal, it would explain why TIE Phantoms and the few crafts with the Stygium crystal-based cloak are perfectly undetectable and invisible. uh, goes without saying. He's just cracking up. Look at that. The original 2003 Clone Wars show showed how crystals was focused inside the lightsaber. Yeah, and that was done. And so where we've learned how the crystals, like how a saber was made and stuff like that, was even in Shadows of the Empire. But it didn't go into more depth. Throughout the lore, you have all of the pieces of how the lightsabers are made, and stuff like that shown to us. And yes, and Clone Wars was one of them that was a good resource on learning how. We got to see that with Barriss and Lumaya when Barriss went to go collect her crystal. Matthew says, I just bought a lot of Star Wars books at half price. Woo! I found a great haul too. So if you follow me on Twitter, you would have seen what I posted. Store from Star Wars, the New Jedi Order, Edge of Victories, Conquest 1, Conquest, and New Jedi Order, Edge of Victory 2, Rebirth, and I know there's more that's coming up. Does anyone remember the Ilum lightsaber crystal temple from the... Yes, we do. And in fact, stay tuned for the announcement of channel members meet up with me to go watch Clone Wars 03 Volume 1 or Season 1, I guess you can say, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so I'm setting up that date. It's going to be through StreamYard's webinar. I'm going to figure out how that works exactly, and we'll send invites so that we can all sit and, with our snacks, popcorn or whatever, and watch Clone Wars 03 Volume 1. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't become a channel member, please do so. I highly recommend it. I'm getting my butt in gear. I do have a lot of life stuff going on, but I haven't forgot about you guys. Lancer says, OG Star Wars, I just want to make a crystal that makes a purple blade that smells like fresh blueberry pie. What? Now you're just BSing here. And it turns things it hits to fresh blueberries pie. So you're... Oh my God. Soul Assassin says, oh, he's talking to the gamer. Okay, OG Star Wars, I'll call it the dreaded berry saber. I am a dark sider, aren't I? Oh well, laugh out loud. That was hilarious. Let's see here. Anyone know there's whiskey on Corellia? Yes, there is. That's Corellian whiskey. And Matthew says Star Wars Force Hederic. Okay, so he's continuing remnant in the Star Wars. Okay, so you have 1 and 2, and wow, so you have you got both of those little trilogies, duologies. Cool. Lancer, don't be sad. That was funny. I loved it. Thank you so much. Don't be sad. You're all good. It's all good. It's all fun and games here, and yeah. Let's see. Hail OG and chat. Sith for life, and welcome for joining us. We have 20 beautiful souls here. Thank you for tuning in, and let's go ahead and get into more of the crystals here. So we did name some here. I did talk about the Lambit crystal that we see that Anakin uses for when he was undercover, basically going to rescue Tahiri. So that was a good one. So if you missed that one, that is the Lambent crystal is basically a Vong type species they bring in, and the tree produces crystals. And Anakin meditated and got attuned to it and used it, which helped him sense the Vong in the Force as well, or not in the Force, just sense Vong in general, I guess, or maybe the Force. So that's a very interesting crystal. You have the Sunrider's Destiny. It was an aquamarine lightsaber crystal given to a Force-sensitive individual by Captain Sarguillo, and on the planet of Dathomir during the Galactic Civil War. When the crystal was properly tuned to be used in a lightsaber, only the person who tuned it could use the lightsaber. So that's very unique. So we do have that. We do have that in the lore, like... more or less that some crystals, some circumstances, only a light sider could use the saber. But then that just depends on the crystal and stuff like that. And this is one of them, the ones that I wanted to bring up, because recently we did have Filoni describe, like, if you're a lightsaber, or if you're a light sider, or if you're trained, then you can turn on the lightsaber, blah 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 blah. Talking about the dark saber being so heavy and how some people can't use it, blah 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 blah. But then you have, Han Solo that turns on Luke's lightsaber and uses it. So that kind of crushes his theory, or his what he was coming up with explaining how a saber is being used. But like I said here, it's the crystal. It's attuned to the person, and only the person that it's attuned to can operate it. And when used in a lightsaber, the crystals, it generates a teal color. So that's this is the Sunrider's Destiny. Sunrider's Destiny. So that's one interesting. And then let's go ahead and talk synthetic and start segueing over to the Sith article, Cringe Factor. And then we'll get into the major topics of legacy characters, and that would be Boba Fett and Mon Mothma. So we are coming up towards the hour here, which perfect timing here for doing our segue here. So in this original Star Wars lore, Sith made synthetic crystals, and their preferred color was red. They wanted, and I guess red, blood, maybe fear, power. Red is a color of power. Color of power, all of that, and so they made their synthetic crystals red. And with that, that signified, the color signified Sith, but not all the time, because we did have, like Leia, one of her first sabers was crimson. Crimson is just a shade of red. And so she's one. And there's a few instances, like even Luke, his Shoto lightsaber was red. And, so there's circumstances there's occasions where the Jedi's saber was red. Doesn't mean they're dark. It just, and because color is not a mood ring when it comes to lightsabers. We have we're going back to the lightsaber crystals. So because the lightsaber crystals, there were so many different variants of lightsaber crystals, and they were so unique that created different colors of crystals. So Ben Skywalker's, basically his was like an aquamarine. And then, so that's one example of one of the Skywalkers. And an aquamarine is a type of blue, right? And then we have like cayenne. We have like a frost or silver. We have emerald or green or lime. Then we have different various colors or shades of orange and yellow, like amber. We have orange. We have like a fire orange, I guess you can say. And then, of course, we have the variant colors of red, including crimson. And that's, like I said, that was what Leia's. So Leia, her first lightsaber, or one of her first, basically, it was red or crimson. I'm sorry. And then you have like a variant color of like red with a black core, kind of like, so it gets really dark in the middle. And then you have red with, like an orange core. And then you have violet, which would be the purple shades. Amethyst, basically Mace Windu's color is considered amethyst. And then we had Jaina Solo's was basically purple. And then we have other crystal colors, which is white, black, brown, silver. And so we have all of that. So depending on the crystal, where it came from, all of that will determine the color. Like I said, and then the Sith, they made their crystals. They did not bleed the crystals. And their preferred color was red. And that's shown throughout the lore. Let's see here. Yeah, George, red is an aggressive color. Yeah, it's powerful, it's aggressive. It's, so it leads to all of that. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll up and see what else you guys have to say here. Um, okay, Soul Assassin says, Revan, Bastilla, and Bastilla. I say Bastilla, I don't know why. And the Ebon Hawk crew got hammered off of Corelli whiskey on Revan's and Bastilla's wedding. Yes. And then Candace made fun of Revan for it. Yes, that's true. I almost forgot about that. Corellian whiskey, something else, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Luke's first generation of students all had synthetic crystals since the Emperor destroyed most of crystal sites? Mm-hmm. So he taught them how, and then as he got more information about where to find crystals and using different type of crystals and stuff like that, then you started seeing the use and in more color, the use of different type of crystals. And I think Sigol's his healer, she ended up using a pearl from her planet, like a pearl or something like that, from what I remember. I have to look that up. I meant to look it up last night as an example, and I did not. So I apologize. But from what I remember, hers was a pearl. Anonymous Gamer says, my Star Wars book haul was mostly prequel EU novels. That's pretty cool. As well as some 90s Bantam era. Nice. Super cheap and in excellent condition, by the way. That's a score when you can find them in excellent condition and for a good price. There you go. Okay, Dark Saber is lame. Aquamarine lightsaber sounds pretty, though. Yeah, just imagine that. And I think, like I said, like Anakin Solo, his was like a purple violet color because of Lambent. Bato says, I don't like the way Filoni does it. Makes it seem too much like the saber isn't a weapon, but a living thing, mind of its own. I agree, OG. Yes, and we'll get into that more once we segue into our cringe factor. Filoni turned lightsaber crystals into Harry Potter. Potty. I was going to say potty ones. Holy heck. All right. Red could also mean anger and rage. Correct. So there's so many different, with red. Red is it. I already read that one. And Matt G, cheers to you. So if you're tuning in, please hit the like button and share that we are live. And I'm sorry I don't have any polls for you guys to vote on, interactive stuff. So all at half price bookstores, including Han Solo trilogy. Awesome. Redwood, exactly. I don't know what that was about. And that time Annie used Ventress Saber during their fight. Correct. That was amazing. The ancient Jedi Sith used and to infuse force crystals into their swords that made them powerful. Yeah. So there was a lot. So there's the evolution of sabers. And, if you want to get into sabers behind the lore, like in general, like going past the crystal and the actual housing of the crystal sabers. And, the sabers evolved from being on a jetpack or on a power pack, and they had a cord to it. And then the Sith basically streamlined that and created the non-cord lightsaber, so you didn't have to use the power pack for it or anything like that. So you could say, and I've said this many times, that the saber as we know it today is a Sith creation, is a Sith adaptation from the power pack saber. Blue is calm. Yes, blue is very calm. Hey there, Abu Nas, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Hey, did Anakin Solo have purple lightsaber once? Yes, and I did state that. So his is like a violet purple from the lambent crystal that he got. Let's see here. And the color crystal is only that. A setting for blade color. The color crystal had varying effects that could augment the blade or its user. Let's see here. And I mostly picked silver as my Exile's original crystal color in Couture 2, simply because I found it so unique. And that's the thing. That's what Star Wars games was all about. It was like you got to Choose your character, make your character, choose the color, all of that. Question for the chat. If you played KOTOR 1 or 2, or both, do you remember what crystals you used? There you go. Kyber crystal and Crate Dragon crystals were my lightsaber, in my lightsaber. Awesome. Well, we'll get into more into Kyber. We'll get more into the Kyber here pretty soon. Let's see here. They used to have backpacks and cords. Laugh out loud. Yes. Yes. So it used to be the swords were basically the metal swords that we see today, or we have today in our world. And then it evolved into the crystal plasma blade that we see. And they were powered with a cord and stuff. So the range of movement and how you can use it was kind of hindered due to that. And the Sith came up with the power came up with the saber we know today. And the Jedi use it. So the reason why the Sith still used it, and stuff, but they also used it against the Jedi to mock the Jedi as well. So there's like, they were very awful, basically. And the Sith always ahead of the curve. Yes. Doing okay. You may have missed my milestone chat on the road. Okay, that doesn't show on this doesn't show on StreamYards. So I will pull it up on my other end here and we'll see what that's about before we segue. So thank you so much. And if I don't pull it up right away, I will definitely share it on my member or on my community page with a thank you. So I hate that StreamYards doesn't show the member milestone chat. And thank you so much. Let me go ahead and find that sucker real quick. All right. And I'm going to read it here without showing it. But Abu Nas has been a member for 31 months. And he says, on the road, finally heading back home. So I'm kicking back and enjoying the EU elitists give us good, real Star Wars canon stuff. Happy to see you on screen again. Proud of my member milestone. And thank you so much for leaving the milestone here. That's very appreciative. So you can do that. People who are channel members, you all probably have a milestone chat available for you right now. However, I won't see it on StreamYards. I only see it if I'm viewing the actual YouTube stream. So thank you so much. And I wish StreamYards would friggin' just update that part. Melissa Lord says, I remember reading about that and being like, well, ancient times. And that's the beauty of Star Wars. Like Star Wars that we had, it goes back more than 25,000 years. It goes back when the first Jedi were coming together on and the planet that they all migrated to and stuff like that, and how the sabers evolved, all of that. Now Disney Star Wars don't really give you that. And that's sad. And they will probably eventually are going to reinvent it, as you see in the new timeline that they shared. Anonymous Gamer says, mostly blue, green, or silver. Then again, it was heavily modded playthroughs. So I got to build lightsabers early on. Sorry about that. Yesterday, I was like kind of coughing, like not crazy, but there are certain instances where my throat got itchy and it's still doing that. I think it's allergies and it sucks. Yeah, it sucks. The weather's changing. It's getting warmer here where I live at. So that's just the life. That's just life. Melissa says, and originally they had actual blades before the pure energy. Yeah, exactly. And hello, how are you doing? And I know I always thought it made sense that they started that way. Correct. It was so interesting. Even if you really didn't get into the Dawn of the Jedi stories and stuff like that, like you still got to learn as you read along and explored in that era going towards the Old Republic and stuff. Very interesting. Abuna says, when I play Star Wars, the Old Republic, Sator, I use the blue, purple, and yellow for light side. And the dark side, I use red. Yes. And I think one of the very still remained with the original color was Exar Kun. So even when he went dark side as a Sith, he still maintained a blue lightsaber. His double-bladed lightsaber. Melissa Lord, I wanted the original Kyber crystal from Splinters of the Mind's Eye in my saber. Awesome. Yeah. That story, fun, quirky, and then some of it didn't make sense to the overall continuity after a while, but it's still a fun read. Abunas, being on the road, I may hit some spots where I lose internet connection, so I'll be bouncing back and forth. That's okay. You drive safe, or you be safe traveling. I wonder if the proto lightsaber was created by the Rakata or the Qua. That's interesting. I didn't even think about that to look into that. You just gave me an idea. I'm going to do some heavy research. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. So with that being said, games gave you your choice of the color of crystal, the type of crystal to be used, all of that for your games, right? Especially when you get into Couture and all that. That's something that I missed, and I do have these games that I can play. I do hope that I could start playing Couture after I'm done with this beaded set that I'm doing. And then I can report back to you guys on this. Do I want to do a gaming live stream? I don't know. Because I probably suck so bad to be laughable, because it's been years since I played the game, any game. But that would probably be interesting for you guys. It'd be amusing for you guys, right? Let's see, OG Stars. If we talked about colors and where they align, I think purple should be Sith, dark side, or conflicted, unbalanced color. It's never been that way, though, because Jaina was never conflicted. Mace, I wouldn't say he's conflicted at all either. I wouldn't even consider it a mood ring kind of thing either. But, that's a good point. I mean, people do think about that. Like, okay, red and blue make purple. But that's not the case, though. But if you want, Sith always, I wouldn't say Sith are conflicted at all. Because the Rakata had the Force saber, but did they come up with it themselves, or did the Qua teach them? That's interesting, because you had that exchange there. You're onto something. I recently played Couture through Couture. Awesome. 1 and 2, she says. And my saber color would be pink. Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah, pink. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and segue into this next, into cringe factor. So this is going to be fun. So the topic is still going to be going into lightsabers in a sense. So there's a hint there. But what we're going to talk about is basically that Disney Star Wars or Disney Sith are more savage than the original Sith. So let's get into that and see what that means.
So uncivilized.
And here we go. I'm going to change my screen layout here. So here we go. We have Disney canon has made the Sith even more savage than Legends or the original one, because I don't really care for that word Legends, but original Star Wars. So let's go ahead and read that and go through that. You guys will find out what they're talking about. You guys are going to be like, what the hell? Some of you guys may have guessed some clues to why, what we're leading up to, maybe not. So basically, the Sith may have been brutal enemies of the Jedi in the Star Wars Legends universe, but Disney canon or Disney lore has managed to make them even more savage. And this is by Nathaniel Rourke. It sounds like Rook, right? And so I'm going to skip that first one here. One character who has served as a catalyst for how savage the Sith are in canon or in Disney lore is Emperor Palpatine. So, we always known he was conniving. When we got to see him use the lightsaber, yeah, he was a force to be reckoned with, right? Well, Palpatine cheated death in both legends are both original lore and Disney lore, his comeback was even more terrifying in canon. So what do you guys think? Do you think, well, I would say Disney lore. I keep on saying canon for Disney, but do you think Palpatine's comeback was more terrifying in the Disney lore? Please let me know in the chat. Displaying unbelievable dark side abilities. Now, if you guys read Dark Empire and you're able to compare it to the Rise of Palpatine, which Palpatine do you think would be more powerful, I guess you could say, or have more abilities? And commanding an entire legion of Sith acolytes. The Disney lore comics explained on Palpatine in the prequel era too, where he had a young Darth Maul breathe in the ashes of a fallen Sith. That kind of sounds gross. What? Now I did scan through this last night when I pulled this up, and I'm like, we're gonna talk about this, but I don't. How come I'm not remembering this part? So breathing in a fallen Sith ashes makes you more powerful? The way he would have a terrible vision and hate all Jedi. So then it would give you like visions and make you hate Jedi? What? So is this the equivalent of like Boba Fett snorting lizards to give him visions to go find the Gaddafi stick, or the stick to make the Gaddafi? So, breathing in the ashes would give you visions and make you hate the Jedi and stuff? What the fuck are we doing here? What the hell? Okay, anyways, I'm just gonna no. It was Palpatine in the comics who introduced the most savage aspect of the Sith in the Star Wars Disney lore, the red lightsaber. So here we go. It was Palpatine in the comics who introduced the most savage aspect of the Sith in Disney lore, the red lightsaber. Wasn't the red lightsaber something of the Sith long before Palpatine? All right. Let's go on. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here a little bit more. The Sith use Kyber crystals to power their lightsabers. Well, duh. Kyber crystals, they have a different name for it. They use crystals basically to power their lightsabers, right? So Kyber, this is how they spell it in the Disney lore. And then we have the Kyber, Kaiber, or something like that. Anyways, in the original lore, that came from splinters of the mind's eye, which was a very, 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 very rare type crystal. And it only stayed on a certain planet. Its abilities were only a certain place and what have you. I should have got more into that before we segued into this, but that's okay. Just like the Jedi. So basically the only crystals that the Jedi use and the Sith within the Disney lore is Kyber, the Kyber crystal, as you guys may know. And but in the Star Wars Disney lore provided a new explanation for how they acquire these crystals. So this is right here. This is going to tell you, and you guys probably know where this is leading to. So Palpatine explains to Darth Vader that a red saber is no different than any other, except it has been made to bleed. It has been made to bleed. So there you go. So we're getting to the bleeding, like bleeding the crystal. I know we've discussed this on Twitter many times before, all of this. You guys see what this is leading up to? If you're getting the hints already. The Kyber crystals are alive. So we have sentient crystals, which that was kind of rare in the original lore. So if they are sentient and they are light force attuned, then wouldn't the will of the force then try to counter a manipulation of the being of this, like this force conduit kind of crystal? I'm just throwing that question out because I'm going to go on here more. The Kyber crystals are alive because of their connection to the force. meaning they can feel pain. Just imagine that. You're going to Ilum in the Disney Star Wars lore to harvest your crystal, and you cut the crystal and you cause it pain. And then you cut down the crystal to fit the saber, and it's feeling pain. Wouldn't that, in the sense, and for Disney Star Wars lore, make it bleed, in a sense, if we're gonna go that direction? But anyways, I digress. So a Sith pours their pain and rage into the crystal. And when at last the agony becomes more than it can stand, it's a beautiful chrism, the color of your rage. That sounded weird. And when at last the agony becomes more than it can stand, a beautiful crimson, the color of your rage. So basically, so I would think that if you're harvesting a crystal and you're shaping it to fit inside your saber, that's the pain it feels, and then it should bleed. If you're pouring your pain and rage into the sentient crystal, wouldn't it make it cry? Wouldn't it make it weep? I don't know. This is so fucking weird. Well, anyway, so we're getting to the point of this. So I thought I'd give you guys this part of the cringe of the article as well. This explanation makes the Sith way more savage in Disney canon than in Legends. Here we go. So because they bleed the crystals, because they pour their rage and everything into the crystal, this is the reason why the Sith from the Disney lore are more savage than the Disney in the original lore. Now, many of you guys have played KOTOR. Many of you guys know the lore in the Old Republic, the old Sith legends, who has drained planets for the life force and fed upon the life force of planets and all of that. But yet, bleeding a motherfucking crystal makes a Sith more savage in Disney lore than the ones in the original lore. Did I tell you this would be cringe? So imagine that. To make a Sith more savage, you have to bleed the crystal. But not draining life forces, not using the force for pain and all this stuff to keep yourself alive, not how you treat others, not executing planets, all of that. No, it's bleeding a motherfucking crystal. Imagine that. Imagine the brain gymnastics that this person that wrote this article has gone through to, in their own mind, to think that Sith of Disney lore are more savage because they basically bleed the crystal. This goes back to the saying of, tell me you don't know much about the Sith without telling me you don't know much about the Sith. It goes to that old adage saying, that corny saying. Let me see what you guys have to say before we go on here. Okay, let's see. You might get sinus problems more than become more powerful in the dark side of the Force. Sith crystals had the ability to destroy Jedi blades. Yes, and that's a thing too. And that's one thing that I thank you for reminding me that I was thinking about last night when I was reading this article, and I just didn't cover it right now. Where's Orange Hat? We need his Sith knowledge. Yeah. So, you have the different Sith, like I said, that, drained the life force from planets to gain power and immortality and stuff like that. All of that. At OG Stars, I've already chopped up the screaming Mandruk planet. Might as well crack some living crystals. Fry some porgs also. Let's see here. Obviously, Disney lore has kyber crystals bleed after all the force is female. Are you trying to say that it's a monthly type of thing? Disney Star Wars is not Star Wars, correct? And a squealing lightsaber sounds scary and heart-wrenching. I don't think I'd want a lightsaber after that, right? Like I said, if they feel pain and stuff and people are going to Elam, like you see in the prequel era now that they're rewriting through just their own material that they're writing, harvesting your crystal, just imagine that you're causing it pain to sculpt it, to harvest it, sculpt it to fit in your lightsaber. So, but yeah, so you would think it would bleed then, right? You would think it'd bleed then according to the Disney concept of, crystals and stuff. OG Star Wars, I want Project Pain into my crystal. I am cracking. I will project SpongeBob into the crystal, making it sickly yellow spastic crystal that's hyper. Okay. Blood is scary. Blood is so scary. They're so savage. I swear Disney, Lucasfilm don't know what they're doing. It's like they made a Frankenstein monster out of a series and expect us to think it's a Sorry, I'm taking a drink. My throat is itchy today. Here we go. Darth Nihilus caused such amounts of damage and then fed on the destruction. Correct. Vitiate did the same, but went further to use the fuel. He'll feel his immortality. Correct. So what do you think about that? Because you and your Sith knowledge here and stuff. Like I said, in short, we had Sith Nihilus that fed upon the Force and stuff like that, destruction as well, and then also Sith that used it for immortality and stuff like that, destroying planets and the Force around the planets as well. Yet bleeding a lightsaber makes the Disney lore Sith more savage. Wow. Oh, and then that, Palpatine controlled, his Sith acolyte, which made him more savage. But no, not really. Read the Dark Empire, you guys. Yeah, it does. There are some discrepancies there and stuff like that. But it's a pretty cool story to see exactly how Palpatine, reached or tried to reach immortality and who he was after to possess. Let me see here. Bleeding Sith lightsaber crystals don't make any sense to me. The EU version of constructing lightsaber sounds more interesting to me. Correct. Darth Nihilus drained Force-rich worlds. Correct. To sustain his power, he wiped out the remaining Jedi on Katarn. Correct. Or Katar. OG Stars, to be honest with you, I don't mind the idea of bleeding crystals. I just don't like it that they're portraying that as the only kind of crystal Sith have. The thing is that crystals aren't really sentient to make them bleed and stuff like that. And that's why people are having a problem with that. So this is first part of Cringe Factor. Let me go back to the article and then we'll get into a more serious conversation here. Let's see here. Since the Sith kept their existence secret for, let me see, did I read the rest of this? Okay, and we know this, in the old expanded universe, the Sith created their own synthetic crystal to try to remain concealed from the Jedi. And while this may be a smart move, it's nowhere near as brutal. Actually, their intentions is very brutal in the sense of staying hidden, plotting, learning about their foes, and all that. Bleeding a crystal doesn't make you brutal at all. If you want to say, okay, so you're bleeding the crystal, putting your rage and stuff inside the crystal, that's bleeding, right? Then wouldn't it be brutal for a Jedi to harvest crystals because they do feel pain? And then then cut down the crystal to fit their blade? Wouldn't that be just as brutal? If you want to play that type of word game and logic? Now, however, when a Sith Lord, Dark Jedi, Knights of Ren, or Imperial Inquisitor appears in Star Wars Disney lore, it's known that the red blade was likely made by killing a Jedi and bleeding the lightsaber crystal. Okay, then so how did all of these, like for Knights of Ren, before when they from what I've researched, they were a thing when Jedi were extinct. So how did they get their red crystals then? Something to think about. This origin for Sith crystals greatly expands Star Wars lore and makes the Sith terrifying villains. Oh, I'm so scared because they bleed crystals. Oh my god. Considering, we had, Sith of the original lore that fed upon the Force, destroyed planets, for immortality and stuff. But these guys are more terrifying. Fear them, you guys. Fear them because they bleed crystals. But it raises a few questions as well. You think, since the Sith kept their existence secret for a million prior to the prequel trilogy, it's curious on if they kept killing Jedi for their kyber crystals, and that's what I pointed out. Surely the Jedi would recognize a pattern of their members being killed by a lightsaber, or sense the kyber crystals bleeding through the Force. However, there are a few explanations for how the Sith stayed hidden, with the biggest being that they may not have killed Jedi every single time. You think? That's the thing I was pointing out. So saying that, they had to kill the Jedi to steal the saber, the crystal, to bleed it, that's what makes them terrifying. That's not the fact. Palpatine actually forbid Darth Maul from killing any Jedi leading up to Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. He didn't want the risk revealing himself too soon. However, the Sith did kill Jedi every time. Then there's a chance it could be a slip under the Jedi's radar. There were approximately 10,000 Jedi, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so they're just trying to explain away this theory, trying to make it make sense. But I'm going to end it here. So let's see what you guys have to say, and we will, and then we'll go on from there. Let's see here. I own some old school custom lightsaber models based mostly on prequel era and original trilogy lightsabers. They came with lightsaber SFX and light up. Yeah, they're from around 2005. Pretty cool. Kyber crystals equal mood rings. Yes, they do. Let's see. OG Star Wars. Is there a short comic called Unseen Unheard that shows Nihilus attack Qatar and the Jedi? Yeah. Oh, there is. I thought you were asking me a question. Laura, I need my glasses. Okay. That's why they preferred them. Synthetic crystals were stronger, correct. The bleeding concept is just foolish, and it does not make them a more terrifying villain, not whatsoever. Channeling hate and rage into items is not new, correct. New to lightsaber crystals, but not other things. How do you think ancient Sith imbued their physical blades with to withstand lightsabers? Yeah, and they also, for the Sith-hounds, they bred them and imbued the dark side into them. That's what made the Sith-hounds such a scary beast. So you're right. So even with sentient beings and stuff like that, but the bleeding concept is just foolish. I do agree. Let's see here. Let me scroll down. Lancer says, OG Star Wars Knights of Ren's got their crystals from eBay. Don't forget the eBay slogan: bleeding prices, bleeding eyes, bleeding crystals, 2 for 1. I'll buy that for $1. Let's see here. Crimson Mist, another channel member, of course. Give me an idea for a Star Wars Lantern Corp crossover with all the colors used. Let me see here. And a great show today. Thank you so much. Let me see here. And then bleeding lightsaber crystals, edgy, I guess. Yeah. So this is the cringe factor I want to talk about. Get into, lightsaber crystals that we talked about earlier. There's so many different ones. Jedi do meditate with the crystals and with the equipment that they're going to build the hilt and the lightsaber with. That's a fact. They do, at one time they did go to Ilum and pick their lightsaber crystals, which they, I guess you could say bonded with and everything, and built their lightsaber. And you'll see that in Clone Wars 03. And then Jedi also did use synthetic crystals as well to build their lightsabers. The Sith preferred the synthetic as well. And so there's so much lore wrapped around it that bleeding, like everything, and I've said this before, everything that the original lore did that was unique and special and different, Disney Star Wars now, Disney Lucasfilm now is doing the opposite. For whatever reason. Luke Skywalker, he was still flawless or flaw. He still had flaw. He wasn't flawless. I'm sorry. He had flaws, doubt, worries, all of this. He still needed help in circumstances. He was powerful. Yes, he gained power, wisdom, and stuff over the years. You know, and he never gave up. Even when he made mistakes, he never gave up and ran away. And Disney took that and did the opposite. Same with Boba Fett. Whatever Boba Fett characteristics were or are in the original lore, they flip that. So and then with lightsabers now, they're flipping the concepts, flipping it different. So everything that the original lore did, they're countering and making a different version of it, doing the opposite of it. And that's why there's so many fans today. I wouldn't say so many, but they're EU fans that understand the lore and understand the concepts of the lore and the rules and stuff like that are questioning all this. And it's okay to question all of it. It's okay to compare and contrast the lore. You know, people do that in Star Trek and other franchises that has so many reboots and stuff like that from the original. That's common. And that's okay. But anyways, I'm going to get off my soapbox with that. So what do you guys think about this? Do you think bleeding lightsaber makes the Sith more savage in the Disney Star Wars lore versus the original lore? I'm pretty sure we all agree it doesn't, but just share a little bit more before we segue to the next article. Let me see here. Don't worry, they're too stupid to come up with anything. You got that right. You got that right. So share in there, which is very crazy. And I was reading Tim, our open airlock policy, commented on my thing about the Disney Star Wars red crystal, and he's like basically that's just a butt plug. I'm saying it in short. He said it was just a butt plug. It's getting hard to find actual Lucas era lore vids nowadays. More Disney lore than anything. And I need to get back up on my game with that. And I apologize, you guys, for not doing too many lore videos and stuff like that. Just life, like business-wise, expanding myself in my own business and stuff like that does take a lot of attention away from the channel. But I'm still here. My focus is still being here for you guys and talking about the lore, even if it's just live streams right now and lore shorts. But I do. And anybody who wants to, you know, make their own EU lore channel or original Star Wars lore channel, I highly recommend you get up there and do it, make your own, so that we have resources out there. Star Wars Clone Wars Ilum episode. Yep. And again, I will schedule that, and you guys, channel members, will get the chance to, and I will send out a poll here pretty soon on what days are preferable so that I have most of you guys with me. Sith of Disney are poor facsimile of the greatness of the EU, correct? Tim is gross. I know he is. Why do you think I get along with these guys? It's like we all like bounce off each other with some crazy shit. Lancer, OG Stars, I saw Vader torture someone by using force death on individual organs, making them instantly die and turn jet black, causing extreme pain on the person in OG lore. So nope. OG is okay to fire Dave Filoni. Is it okay to if I had my way, I would, because he was the one that began the destruction of the continuity. And this is pre-Disney. Hey, how you doing? Galadron, sorry. So shows these writers grew up as the participation awards generation. Fire Dave Filoni. And then Quinlan Voss, how are you doing? We just got over cringe factor about how the Sith of Disney lore are more savage than the original lore because they bleed lightsaber crystals. So that will explain cringe factor here. Thank you for tuning in. We are going to get into another article here. So we're in the cringe factor portion of the program. As Yoda once said, don't hate the media, become the media. Let's see here. So that's that. So thank you guys for participating in this portion of Cringe Factor. We are going to get into an article that was shared to me by Raging Rhino this morning. You know, he is in Australia, so he's used, you know, his wake time, you know, his schedule, the time frame is different than here where I live at. So he got to see when Bounding Into Comic brought this article up, and it talks more about Mon Mothma, something that I've been discussing for about 2 years now about how her character has been being changed and a bit destroyed, and her concept of handling the New Republic and all that. So yeah, so we're going to get into that. I'm still learning most of the old EU, so some of these concepts are still a bit new to me. Well, welcome to and exploring and stuff. Like I said, if you need help or have any questions regarding the lore and, you know, books and stuff like that, let myself know and other people know. There are so many people that are knowledgeable that can help you out. I mostly ignore Disney canon lore or books in general. Most of them were terribly written, and that's the consensus with some people, is that they were turned off because of that, and some people started moving on over to original lore. And I have no problem with helping you guys out in the discovery of where you want to be at with reading the lore, where do you want to start at, all of that. Soul Assassin says, Disney Star Wars Sith are but children playing with abilities that pale in comparison to the ancient Lucas era Sith masters. Let's see here. Yeah, OG would send phony Filoni packing where I mean security will be tossing his ass out on the street. Yep, I will have my I would have him tossed, but that's just me. And right here, I'm kneading. This is a kneadable eraser. So I'm over here all kneading it. It's kind of therapy too. So it feels kind of like clay, and it's great when you sketch, and if and you can use it to dust off and stuff like that. You can make a point out of it, and you can, like if you make a part too dark, you can kind of use that points to make lines and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Let's see. Disney New Republic Evil Inept. Yeah, and or really shared that as well, Melissa. So we'll go into the next segue into the next article here. And I'm going to also talk about Tamora Morrison and what he had recently said. And I did do a video on it as well. So if you guys aren't familiar with that, he did bring to light about how he was expecting to be called back for Mandalorian season 3, and he never got the call. And then he also stated that, you know, he wouldn't negotiate. You know, he wouldn't have negotiated anything with them during the time frame because Disney was doing cutbacks and stuff like that. And then he also was jokingly stating how much the Mandalorian, you know, stole his show or stole pages from his show, The Book of Boba Fett. So if you guys haven't had a chance, go and check out that video. Go check out that video. So, and my points that I'm going to make here is that, and Tuscan Bob is the one that did the research and pulled it up on Twitter and made the points. So I'm just bouncing off of what he stated. So I'm giving credit where credit's due. Is that The Mandalorian was being filmed around 2021, and I don't have I don't have the tweet pulled up in front of me. Well, during within months differences in 2021, the Book of Boba Fett was being aired. And so when Tamora Morrison was discussing about cutbacks and not really negotiating and waiting for the phone call to be put in the Mandalorian season 3, that was back in 2021. And this is before we got notice about the layoffs and stuff like that. But we knew that the pandemic was going on, and we knew that that, you know, there were certain things that they were working on and certain budget they were working on and stuff like that. That's just common, right? Because if there was really cuts and stuff like that, in cutbacks and stuff like that. Why? Like why would they bring in such big star entities like Lizzo and Jack Black and stuff like that? If they're really wanting to cut back and do cutbacks and stuff like that, because that they paid them the big bucks for that. So maybe instead of saying there was cutbacks and stuff, maybe they were saving their money and their attention was bringing in these big stars to pay them the big bucks. Yes. So let's see. I agree with that. Crimson Mist said they gave us the money, the Force Awakens made, and a few good Legends writers, and people will be tripping over themselves. I wouldn't want to bring them back. Not under Disney. Morrison called out Disney out on their BS and they didn't like it, so he ain't invited back. Yeah, so that goes back to when he was calling them out, prior to that. So that, yeah, you're right. And I remember we did talk about that on the spacing, and I think I did talk about here on one of the coffee chats as well. These new fans have I'm not going to try to read that. Let's see here. And see, my voice is itchy. I hate it. It's like annoying. I feel good. Soul Assassin says, oh God, Book of Boba Fett was hard to watch. Not a Fett at all. Correct. OG Star Wars. What's really weird is I thought Boba was in a Mando season 3 because I saw people using thumbnails of season 3 with Boba using Darksaber. I assumed he was becoming Mandalore. No. OG Boba Fett spoke the truth. They had all the Mandalorian clans together, but OG Boba Fett was left out. Shake my head. There wouldn't be any Mandalorians if Boba Fett didn't exist in Empire Strikes Back. There wouldn't be any type of Mandalorian culture if it wasn't for Boba Fett and George bringing that in, and then Karen Travis really spinning off with the Mandalorian culture and stuff as well. So the concept did begin with Boba Fett, and expanded from there. And then during that time, he wasn't Mandalore just yet, but by the time we get into New Jedi Order, he became Mandalore, which is basically a type of ruler, but it's not the kind of ruler that you think of, like king and queen and stuff like that they're sharing in the Disney lore. The Mandalorian culture did not have a ruling person, did not have a queen or a king, and the scepter wasn't a saber or anything like that, like they're and all of that. So what ruler really meant for Mandalore is someone that was someone that called them to order when they needed to fight. They looked out for the well-being, but allowed the culture to exist and thrive on its own without having a dictatorship, basically. So anytime that the Mandalore needed everyone, he made the call out, and then they came and they fought with the Mandalore. That's it. They didn't dictate how people lived or anything like that. They also did, met with the clans and, talked about the economy of Mandalore, or of the Mandalorians, as well as you've seen in Legacy of the Force. So that was just it. They weren't a ruler or a dictatorship as we kind of see that the Disney lore is leading them to be. Never seen The Mandalorian or any Disney Star Wars shows before. Heard season 3 was pretty bad, especially in the ridiculous episode with Jack Black and Lizzo. That's my other point, is like, okay, so was there cutbacks? Then where was the cutback? Was the cutbacks made so that they can bring these cameo stars on? I mean, it brings more questions than anything else. That's not Star Wars in my eyes. And George was never big on making huge cameos. I think Samuel L. Jackson was an exception to the rule. Oh, and I was gonna include that on today's CAF chat, is talk about him. And so next CAF chat, we are going to talk about Samuel L. Jackson and his role as Mace Windu, and how much he liked the lore, how much he wanted to be in Star Wars and stuff like that. So he is the exception to the rule, basically. He was. And, so we'll talk about that next CAF chat. Damn it. can't believe I forgot about that. I made a tweet about that, a fun fact about that. And I'm like, this is a great CAF chat discussion. So stay tuned for the next CAF chat. He will be the discussion. And we'll also talk about Mace Windu and all that. A chiefs of chiefs, correct, in a sense. Yeah. Clades were low IQ. I know. I just didn't want to get into it because and I just said it. So there goes my thought. Never mind. I was wondering about that in Mandalorian. A Mando battle without Boba, missed opportunity. Correct. Let's see here. For those that don't know his Trek reference, you don't try to rule Mandalorians if you're smart. You just get suggestions, correct, that they want to follow, right? That's the thing. And then the only time that they really answered the call of the Mandalore basically is like to fight and stuff. And sometimes some people didn't even show up. But the Mandalore was someone that was highly respected. And Boba, he did have backlash becoming Mandalore because he was an absentee Mandalore because of his circumstances. Now, we can speculate or we can maybe think that if Jango did survive, he probably would know more about his Mandalorian culture than he did, growing up after losing his father at a very young age. What makes it worse is that the AI and deep fakes being used by Disney to recreate the old character and bastardize them even further, correct? And we're going to get into more of that here in this article. The Bounty Hunter Wars book trilogy was a far better Boba Fett story than Book of Boba Fett was. Yeah, there's some truth to that. Legends say that Sam the Man Jackson had bad mofo written on his lightsaber. Correct. Correct. I love Mace Windu. I love Samuel L. Jackson in general. Yes, I meant to put him as a topic and I totally just blew that one today. So stay tuned for the next CAF chat because there is a very interesting article that I want to touch bases on and talk about his love of sci-fi and his love of Star Wars because of sci-fi and seeing A New Hope and wanting to be a part of Star Wars. Preston says, I didn't even know Michael Jackson wanted to play Jar Jar. I knew he wanted to play Spider-Man, but not Jar Jar. Heck, if you want a better Mandalorian story, play the Bounty Hunter video game, PS4. It's everything you want in a Jango Fett origin stories, especially prior to Attack of the Clones. Correct. All right, you guys. So that was that. So if you want to go ahead and know more about what I had to say about Tamara Morrison's recent comments at a Comic-Con in Australia, I think it was Melbourne. Go ahead and check that out. I think Raging Rhino is going to discuss that too tonight. So go ahead and check out his live stream tonight. I don't have the exact time in front of me, so I'm not going to quote that. So stay tuned for that. Go ahead and find him here on YouTube and then go subscribe if you haven't, and then set your reminder if you have so that you're there. So it's always interesting to get everybody's difference of opinions and views on these such topics. There might be a point that I may have pointed out that he has it and vice versa. And I don't have the topics for the spacing for this tomorrow night, so I can't really say, but I will be on the spacing tomorrow night. So stay tuned for that and go to Open Airlock Policy if you haven't and subscribe to his channel. And then once the link is up, go ahead and click reminder and catch us there. So let me see here. Let me go ahead and go to this article here. We are starting to wind down, but I just wanted to point out here. So I've talked about Mon Mothma's character destruction way before Andor, and that began with her demilitarizing the New Republic. And that doesn't fit with the Mon Mothma that we've seen and known and loved and learned about in the EU. In fact, she kept the fight against the Imperial Remnant because basically they did defeat a huge faction of the Empire. in episode 6, Return of the Jedi. So we've seen that. But because the Empire was well spread out through the whole galaxy with their garrisons in every system and their moffs in every system and their influence in every system, there was cleaning up to do because not everybody was involved in the Endor battle, right? So we've seen these warlords now wanting to fight for their position as emperor, or leader of the remnant, the remaining empire. And we see that with Aisani Isard. We see that with Natasi Dala, which kind of just stayed as an admiral and minded her business in some instances, in a sense. And then you've seen Pelion, we've seen Thrawn, and Thrawn coming back to reclaim the glory of the Empire, and he got defeated and stuff like that. But because Mon Mothma understood that they still had forces of remaining Imperial to deal with, she did not demilitarize. Because if she did, she knew that they would come and they would try to avenge the Emperor. They even had to fight to regain Coruscant. And, so she was one of the leaders that led that. Rogue Squadron was the tool to be used to destroy the Empire there. So if you haven't read the series, I highly recommend X-Wing series. I really, really do. Great storyline there. Especially if you're one of those that are like, I want to read stories that is not heavy with Jedi, and stuff like that. That's a great series to read. But here we have Mon Mothma. And like I said, I've been speaking about this since I heard about her demilitarizing. And that was witnessed in The Force Awakens, because it's like, where were they when this threat started coming about? And then she was so ignorant, and the government of the time in Disney Lord was so ignorant to not listen to Leia. And then there's that whole point, and I need to really sit down and talk about Leia and how much they destroyed Leia. But in the Disney lore, when they found out she was Vader's daughter, or she's Vader's daughter, they turned on her, not considering that Vader didn't raise her, that you're not the sum of your parent, really, and that she was raised by a well-respected leader, Bail Organa, who also was married to the Queen, was very impactful to the whole entire galaxy, and also one of the rebellion leaders. And herself stepping up and taking herself out of the limelight of being the Princess of Alderaan and becoming a rebel leader. And then in the original lore, basically helping rebuild the Republic, naming it New Republic, and then the name kind of evolved after that, if you know the lore. But with Mon Mothma, she is now in the Disney lore, and this is where I get to the point, and I probably don't even have to read the article now, because I probably said everything that this article has said, but she's come to the point of being very passive in Disney lore. And like I said, my point was too, is that they took a beautiful character, a beautiful, strong female leader, and totally switched her character, switched the character arc. Like I said, they did the opposite of what she was in the original lore. Original lore, she was like, we need to protect our assets. We need to maintain our military. But in the Disney lore, like in The Mandalorian and Andor, not necessarily Andor, but in The Mandalorian, she decommissioned like Rogue Squadron, all the rebellion fighters. Instead of instead of like bringing them in as part of the military forces, she decommissioned them, sent them on their way, and then she demilitarized to where now she only has a police force that you see in The Mandalorian. And then from there, from all these decisions she made, the First Order rose and took advantage of that. So this goes back to what I've been saying for a very, very long time. Since The Force Awakens, and since it was revealed, like in Aftermath and even in Bloodline of the Disney Star Wars lore, that she is the sole reason why the First Order rose, because they took advantage of her making the choices of demilitarization. And this article did point out, like, this is a glimpse of like how today's society see that less weapons and less this and that and demilitarizing and all this is better for the society. But when you create a society that can't defend themselves, and the country or the state or whatever, or even the sector, in this case, the galaxy and their sectors, can't defend themselves much, can't rely on their government, then you see the rise of the villain, basically. And this is exactly like you see, like, woke isn't always about strong female lead that's OP or Mary Sue, or inserting this diversity so that people can relate to it today, and it kind of just is out of story. This woke is also doing the political concepts in a lore that really didn't need it. That doesn't really make sense to the lore that was established. That's another woke concept, and people kind of forget about that. And they did with Mon Mothma from the beginning. They didn't see that as woke. They didn't see it as a problem. But it is. So putting in this, taking weapons away from the public, basically, in general, and that type of theory, that type of concept, and that type of political concept is another type of wokeness, I guess you can say, if we're gonna, because woke, the word has evolved into something completely different from where it started. We all know that. If you don't, I've talked about this before, what woke really means versus how it's being used now in this culture war for, these franchises, the culture of these franchises and stuff. Yeah, so inserting these political views and making it to where she's like very passive, and we must negotiating with planets for certain things, and the concept of demilitarizing and stuff like that. That's a woke concept of today. So I'm not going to read this article now entirety, because I already talked about what this article really states. And I've been talking about this for a very long time. So what do you guys think about this? I'm going to go ahead and read through these comments. Here, let me see where I could start. Where did I last lead off of? Thank you for tuning in, Preston. I didn't see you leave. An empire doesn't defeat rebels from without, only from within. And that's the thing too. And that because of the concept of that, they did have insurgents and stuff like that. Rogue Squadron was enough stories to be several seasons of TV. Not that I'd want current IP owners to touch any of it. Correct. OG Star Wars. I thought some people turned on her in both OG material and Disney Star Wars. They didn't. People didn't turn on her in the original lore. However, one instance that you may want to say turn wasn't necessarily turn because he used her, but it's Borsk Felia. It's Felia. He was vying for power in the Thrawn trilogy, and so we see that push and pull in there, and then that also goes into so it's a little bit in Thrawn, but then we get into like the New Jedi Order. We get into before that we get into the Hand of Thrawn duology, where he gains power. He turns on Leia And she's, she then goes on, I believe either she resigns or she goes on leave. I think it's more or less leave. And but he positions himself for power, and he uses Mon Mothma as a tool, in a sense. But then she also counters back. So I would say read that, learn more, because what I said doesn't make it look good. But she does counter. She does have a say and stuff. But Failure is such a manipulator that he kind of he kind of gets his ways in some instances. Let's see here. I don't know what Disney was thinking demilitarizing the New Republic, knowing full well there were remnants. Right, I know, and that's the thing. And don't get me started on New Republic. They could have called the resistance, the special forces at least. Yes, I agree. In the original lore, the military that they created for the rebellion was just segued or just put, then used for the military. I wouldn't say segue, but used for the military in the New Republic. So Rogue Squadron still stayed a prominent part of the forces because they were so feared. So they used the most feared squadron to regain Coruscant, to liberate Coruscant. Whereas this lore here, they decommission them. Instead of keeping their most powerful forces and using them as their military, they decommission and they demilitarize. Doesn't make sense whatsoever. Makes you wonder why Disney hate the good guys. Contempt for the EU is newer generation thinking they're smarter and better writers better writers than those that came before, and laziness to learn the old rules. Well, the rules in general. OG Star Wars, decommissioning the whole galactic military except for one fleet is the dumbest thing outside of Grand Admiral Salone betraying lots of the good Imperials they have had in new lore. Yeah, I knew what you meant. OG Star Wars, it opens up the entire Star Wars galaxy and its satellite galaxies to extragalactic invasion and other things. I can't believe no one brought that up in universe. And then it goes into their new series of Ahsoka. So we're not going to see Rogue Squadron and all that fighting. We're not going to see the military come up. It's just going to be Ahsoka and the rebels from the Rebel cartoon, basically. So then the adaptation, it's not really one. It's not really heir to the Empire. People think it's going to be. It's not, because it can't even be adapted. The New Republic sounds a lot like the gun-free zone in real life. What happened to Mon Mothma after the Empire in the old EU? After the fall of the Empire. So she's after Endor, she was still highly involved. And with Leia was her secondhand person, or her person to help her rebuild the New Republic. And she still stayed alongside in the politics for a very long time, eventually passing away. We'll get, there's so much lore that needs to be done for these characters on my channel and discussion. But she stayed pretty much involved upon her death. She did go back to her planet, and with her daughter, she, in a sense, I guess you could say retired a sense. Red Hood Winked says, now it's starting to sound like Mon Mothma was a double agent for the Empire, taking guns from everyone. This version of Star Wars, the Force is definitely female, which also happens to insult the females, correct? And demilitarizing the New Republic when the Yuuzhan Vong invasion is only 40 years around the corner, that literally makes no sense. Well, the Yuuzhan Vong isn't a part of the Disney lore. So that's the thing. Please hit the like button. Yes, please hit the like button. Okay, time for work from me. See you next week. OG, guys, legends forever. Yes, and see you later. So we're going to close it here. Like I said, I pretty much said what I need to say without reading the article. But I've been saying this for a long time, and people didn't realize that this is another woke insertion that we've been seeing going on today. And this is also taking a beloved character and doing the opposite of what they were in the original lore. And we see that with Boba Fett, we see that with Luke, we see that with Han, we see that with Leia, we see that with Tarkin, we see that with Mon Mothma. Do you guys see the pattern here? You know, they wanted to have the creative freedom. They want to create the opposite or different lore from what came before. And because of that, they're doing the complete opposite, which doesn't make sense for the characters that we grew up knowing and loving. So I'll close that with this. You know, you make the decision where you want to be. Honor the lore that came before. Have fun sharing and talking about it. Knowing that we still have it. It's still at our fingertips, you know. So I'm just gonna, how about I use the newest version here. Start collecting, adding to your collection, and need help with resources and finding these source books and novels, comics and stuff. I'm here for you. There's many of us that are here for you. Keep sharing the lore on Twitter and all your social media outlets. Keep coming back to support these channels. Keep up in the conversation because we're always learning, expanding. Go check out Matt Wilkins' channel. He's doing rereads, and he's even rediscovering things that he missed from reading around the first time and reading it before. So every time you go back and read, you're coming up with a new discovery. You're like, oh, I really didn't notice that the last time I read that. And that's the beauty of it. Knowing that, you know, we probably will not get any more of the lore within the original lore. And I wouldn't want them to write for the original lore because of the direction they took the lore. Yeah, so know that we are here and we'll continue to share. We'll continue to support each other, all of that, and enjoy the original lore in its fullest content ever, its fullest beauty ever, its fullest enrichment of continuity ever. And so stay tuned. Again, if you want to see a major manufacturer that I have not done, I've only done 2, let me know. I may just, like, if only one person responds, then I may just go with that. So stay tuned for our EU lore short on major manufacturer. And see you guys next CAF chats. We will discuss Mace Windu and Samuel L. Jackson. That will be such a great conversation in its own right there. And cringe factor, you never know what's going to show up for that. And again, become a channel member. Like, subscribe, and share if you haven't already. And may the force be with you. And I'll chat with you guys later. Catch you on the spacing tomorrow night. After 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is the usual time. Stay tuned for the topics I will share once that's up. And may the force be with you. I will chat with you guys later.
I had fought the worst of all wars and witnessed the redemption of evil. I have seen balance restored to the Force. But order can turn to chaos, as it did when I was born. Now, with my loved ones and my loyal allies, I face a new challenge unlike any before. And I'm not sure at this time we can win.
Star Wars Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore, the first novel of the new Jedi Order.
Another happy landing.